Stop what you're doing right now. Well, keep playing the video. I just found this really cool program that I want to share with you guys, and you gotta check it out right now. Get ready to fight! I mean, right. Or do I? Hello super friends, and welcome back to another episode of Superhero Saturday, where we talk about the arts of superheroes, storytelling, and so much more. My name is Annie, and I am a professional writer, but I wouldn't call myself a high-tech writer. I'm not old school either. I don't type stuff out on the typewriter or like hand write every single word that I'm gonna write, you know. I can type way faster than I can scribble by hand, and it's a lot clearer. All the technology that I really need to actually do the thing of writing is an internet connection, a computer with a keyboard, and Google. Well, and maybe some music to listen to. But that's really it. I store all of my manuscripts and write all of my manuscripts on my Google Drive. Plus, all my research kind of starts with the Google search. However, I do know that there are other programs out there that are supposed to help authors to kind of like organize and schedule out and map out their stories. I just don't use that stuff. But there is one writing program that I just recently discovered or rediscovered that is so amazingly awesome, I just had to share it with you guys. And no, it's not sponsored. The program in question is called Fighter's Block. Like writer's block, except, you know, fighter's block. The URL is a little bit weird though, so don't go to fightersblock.com. I'll have the link in the description below if you want to check it out yourself. I first heard tell of this legendary writing program I'd say a couple years back. I saved it on Pinterest and then I didn't ever actually look at it again until this week. So for today's episode, we are going to check out and explore and try out the Fighter's Block program to see if it works and how well it does. If you've already heard of this program, which I'm really slow at the internet trends, if you haven't noticed, go ahead and put it down in the comments below if you already have an opinion or if you've already tried this out. I want to see how popular it is. So with that out of the way, let's get started. The idea behind the Fighter's Block program is that it turns writing and reaching a word count into a little bit of a video game. Your character is a little avatar that pops up on the screen, a little warrior of some kind, and your enemy, your adversary, is a little writer's block monster. And the goal of the game is to reach your word count, and once you reach that word count, then the monster is defeated. But if you don't keep up your writing pace for long enough, then your character loses hit points and they eventually fail the game. The reason that I remembered this program this week was because I was working on some copy for my day job and I just was having a really hard time struggling to get that word count. So I decided to waste, you know, a few minutes looking for it and then I could return to struggling through like I normally do. But I found it and I tried it out for this piece that I was working on, and it totally worked. It was really fun to watch the little progress bar go across the screen. It was a really easy way to see how far I had come and how far I had left to go, and it kept me writing and pushing forward just to keep the little bar from going down on my hit points. In fact, it worked so well that I wanted to try and use it for some of my own writing, my creative writing. My normal top writing speed, if I'm going about as fast as I possibly can, is about 1,000 words an hour. Now, that may sound like a lot, but I can type about 100 words a minute and I don't write it that much. That it actually doesn't add up to that many words per minute. That's just the top speed I can usually go. And that's when I already have planned out the scene that I'm kind of working on, where it's going, and I'm familiar with the characters, and I know what the plot points are. All of that pre-work is already done. But I was curious if I invented a completely new superhero character and tried to write a little origin story, if this program could help me keep that high rate of speed even when I didn't know what was going on. So this was my challenge. I gave myself 10 minutes to come up with a little bit of a character design for a new superhero and maybe a little bit of a, you know, determining style and like tone and stuff like that. And then I would give myself 1 hour to try and get out as many words as I could into this little superhero origin story and see if at the end of the hour I had reached my top speed or didn't reach the top speed or maybe even exceeded that speed. So I sat down to work and started with my usual basic story character development tools, which is, as you guys know, coming up with a superhero name, some superhero colors, and a set of superpowers to work with for the character. I got some random colors, which turned out to be blue and orange, and then I decided to kind of stick black in there with it to give it a little bit of a grounding color. I didn't come up with a really good random name. Nothing really stuck out at me when I was churning through the generator, but when I skipped over to the superpowers generator, I found a new one to me that was really interesting. It's called Clarolfactance? I think that's how you pronounce it. And this is some kind of super smelling type power where you can kind of smell things and get a sense of their spiritual and metaphysical history and future. I really liked the idea of the super smell plus the blue and black with a little bit of orange colors together, and that kind of put into mind law enforcement to me. So I thought I would do a little bit of a canine police detective type character who got this Clarolfactance superpower and used it to literally sniff out crime. It seemed silly, it seemed lighthearted, it seemed like something that I could do without worrying too much about making something like edgy and extreme. Just something to have fun with. Once I got that, I checked my time, and at 1:15 p.m. I gave myself that 1 hour to start writing whatever I could think of and just put stuff on the page and see what came out in the next hour. So here we go, super friends. I'll see you at the finish line. The results at the end of the hour were that I had actually exceeded my top speed and got even more than 1,000 words per hour. I don't know exactly what it was, I forgot to do the word count, but as soon as you reach your goal on the little thing, it stops counting your words for you, so that's how that goes. And honestly, it really did help. I had no clue what I was going with when I was starting, and you know, sometimes it takes me a little bit of time to stop on a word and say, what's the word I'm looking for? Thankfully, it did allow me to pause the little battle between the warrior and the monster so that I could go off and look up different dog names to use as character descriptions and things. So it does give you a way to stop and do that research. If you can just make sure to come back to your little battle, then it seems to work just fine. And watching that little bar go across the screen really helped me to keep pushing the word count, keep putting stuff out. One of my favorite writing tips is just that you've got to get something down on the page first. You can't work with anything, you can't revise it, you can't polish it up until you have something written. And this worked perfectly for that. I'm not really a gamer, so I was kind of curious to see how well this would work for me, but it worked so well. It was like a really easy way to keep track of the time and see how much time I was wasting sitting around thinking about what was coming next, rather than doing something. I kind of think about it like keeping track of your steps on like a pedometer so that you can make sure that you're doing enough physical activity in a day. Or maybe drinking a gallon of water and marking out how much water you're getting through at certain times to keep yourself on track. It gives you hard and fast goals with specific checkpoints to keep you going. Plus it looks fun, so that really was a bonus for me. The only thing that I thought was kind of interesting is that when you delete words off of the page, it actually does count for your writing hit points. So if you were ever in a spot where you're not sure and you're thinking about something and your hit points start to get down pretty low, you can just delete a bunch of stuff and it gets it back up, and then you rewrite it and you gain back up to where you were. So it worked because you were still working on it when you're deleting things, but it also was kind of interesting. Regardless, overall it worked fantastically, and I have the first 1,000 and some words for the beginning of an origin story for a superhero detective with the power of Clarolfactance. I'll learn it here eventually. So, do you want to see what I've written? Let's read it together, super friends. And you can tell me how you think about this hour's worth of work on a superhero origin story that I had never given any thought of before the timer started. Let's read. Detective Louis Labrador was a pretty average police officer in the bustling metropolis of Chelsea City, which was difficult because there was so much going on around him. Coworkers regularly broke up major drug deals, had shootouts with suspected terrorists, and disarmed powerful counter-government organizations. His entire division was bristling with shrewd, disciplined officers dedicated to serving and protecting, and they made stopping major criminal operations look easy. But not Louis. He was content with keeping his head down and following the rules. Filing paperwork? That was his sweet spot. Guard duty? No problem. Security detail? He had your back. And while he was a good enough cop to get the job done, no matter what was called for, he just wasn't interested in high-stakes, high-profile, and high-stress cases. His occasional treat was a nice powdered donut from the little shop down the street. Besides that, nothing made him happier than staying at his desk. "Thanks for covering for me, Louis," Detective Yvonne York said gratefully, handing over a stack of files at the door of the precinct. "This kid's just being an absolute handful tonight. I feel like she's going to drop-kick my kidneys into space." Louis hummed sympathetically. His sister had said something of the same thing the year before, just a few weeks before giving birth to Louis's nephew. "I know it can be tough. Hang in there." Yvonne let out a bark-like laugh and waved at the poster on the wall, which Louis was quoting. "What I wouldn't give to be that stupid cat instead of pregnant right about now." "Oh well, anyway, I hope you get some rest," Louis waved as she waddled over to the elevator at the other end of the bullpen. "Good luck." "You too," she grinned, although it looked more like a grimace. The elevator doors closed in front of her. Louis settled into the chair at his desk, leaned back, and began to flip through the case files. There weren't many, as the night shift captain wanted to keep Yvonne at her desk as much as possible before her maternity leave. A few simple B&Es, which Yvonne was able to follow up with on the phone. An assault and battery charge, which might have been a simple barroom brawl between colleagues. And one curious cybercrime case that looked like she'd been working on it for a few months. Leaning forward, Louis deposited the case files on the desktop and then pulled a notepad and pen from the drawer. He began to prioritize his next tasks based on estimated difficulty level, as he always did, starting with the easiest to complete. However, before he reached the third item, Louis found his pen hesitating on the page. He looked back at the files. He had the strangest feeling of burning curiosity. Stroking his wiry mustache, he wondered, what was that old saying about the cat? Louis flipped open the cyber case again, which was perched on top of the pile. The tech store that reported the crime would only be open for another hour. Maybe he should go follow up on that one first, just to see if the case had any merit. Then he could better prioritize the rest of his list. Yes, that seemed like a good plan. So Louis saddled up and headed out. He cruised through the tail end of the rush hour traffic and conveniently found a parking spot right at the front of the shop. "Howdy there," Louis nodded at the tiny clerk behind the customer service kiosk, who looked as tiny and spookable as a chihuahua. "May I speak to a, Goldie Goodwin?" The clerk, who must have been barely 18, gulped as he glanced at the shiny badge on Louis's belt. "Yeah, sure. She's in the back." One of Louis's bushy black eyebrows crept slowly up his forehead. "Thank you, son. Before I go, is there anything you want to, tell me?" Biting his lip, the clerk shook his head. "No, sir. No. All good here." Louis waited a moment longer, letting the silence linger painfully, but the clerk didn't break. "Alrighty then," he said at last, throwing him a tight smile. "Thanks again for your time." He strode down the aisle with ease, but Louis's ears were on high alert as he went, just in case the clerk decided to do something unexpected behind his back. Nothing happened though, and he made it to the back counter without consequence. A woman with a head full of yellowy curls as tight as a poodle's popped up from behind the glass case, where she was arranging a display of cheap cell phones. "Oh!" she squeaked as she spotted Louis approaching. She tilted her head to gaze at Louis over her beaded glasses and smiled. "Well, hello there, officer. Aren't you a tribute to the force?" Louis cleared his throat, hoping she wouldn't see the blush darken his cheeks. "Hello, Miss Goodwin." "Call me Goldie. Everyone does, ever since the 3rd grade." Louis nodded in acknowledgement. "My name is Detective Labrador. I'm here to help Detective York with your report on a possible cybercrime in this facility." "Oh yes, that lady was so sweet," Goldie simpered. "Looks like she'd swallowed a watermelon, but sweet." That was as accurate a description for Yvonne as Louis had ever heard. "Can you tell me about the incident?" "Sure thing," she replied. "It was the strangest thing. I was checking out our email the other day and I got all these angry messages that said their store credit cards were maxed out even though they hadn't been in for weeks. Naturally, I thought it must have been something I'd done. I may work at a computer store, but I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination. But when I told our IT guy Dane about it, he was suspicious. We did a little digging and crash! Ring! Goldie squealed and ducked while Louis whipped around. The scared little clerk had smashed the glass storefront. Thousands of tiny blue shards littered the shelves inside and the sidewalk outside. The clerk was standing by the window, looking a little shocked at what he'd done. But before Louis could initiate pursuit, he dropped the fire extinguisher he'd used to smash the glass and took off down the street. Groaning internally at the thought of chasing the much younger and probably more fit suspect, Louis reached for the radio on his belt and called, "Stay here, Goldie, and don't do anything crazy until I get back." "Okay, detective." Louis gave chase. So that's only the first 1,000 words, but that is the start to a really fun, really silly origin story, and we didn't even get to the superpowers yet, which is kind of funny, but I had some kind of thought in my mind that whatever the kid ran off to go do, Louis would go and get sprayed with chemicals of some kind and end up with the super sniffer. Honestly, it was so much fun to write, and by the end of the hour, I was just having a good time and I was ready to keep going. So I was super thankful for the Fighter's Block program. I can totally see using it in my own books, for writing assignments for work if I'm really in a pinch, and if I was in school still, that would work great for writing a homework essay. So what do you think, Super Friends? Do you think this makes a pretty good start to an origin story? Have you ever tried the Fighter's Block program? And if after watching this video, are you gonna consider trying it yourself? Let me know what you think in the comments below and we'll see if we can go from there. And thanks so much for watching, Super Friends. If you enjoyed this video, you can go ahead and give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more superheroic content every single Saturday. You can join the team by following us on social media and by supporting us over on Patreon. And if you want to see my own original superhero characters, not improvised in a single hour, you can go over to our website at www.fearless9.com, where you can pick up some books that may just contain your new favorite superhero story. Thanks again for watching, Super Friends, and we'll see you next week.